Vanguards are not available, and that is going to kind of hurt, I think, what 100 Thieves might try to do when TTK and Vinny have gone for some very nice divey compositions themselves, especially Vinny.
You've also got to pay attention to Terra, who has been extremely proficient on the Winter Soldier, but when we started to see teams like Citadel, for example, start to ban that away, we started to see 100 Thieves maybe falter a little bit. Terra, of course, did come into this tournament a little bit sick, but we actually found out last night that Vess is also feeling a little bit under the weather, so the health buff is going to be evened out between the two teams here, as Jeff is going to be secured one-sided so far for FlyQuest, but that is like, we've already seen that Venom banned away, so they chose it in spite of that.
Yeah. They've also gone for like bans on stuff like Hela, Mantis, Jeff, it's sort of up there, Invisible, Woman, Loki. You got the one-sided Jeff, one-sided Venom, so you're not going to see the team up in either case. But for 100 Thieves, you haven't really been relying too much on the Mantis, or looking at some of the other stuff that they've gone for. Like Emma Frost is also just been climbing up the ranks, and Groot, certainly on a map where you expect these kind of comps to be potentially more brawly than what we've seen from like Hela Namor, make sure that FlyQuest, if you're going to be sort of hitting some of the other Vanguards, that you can't really pivot into compositions that well. But Emma Frost still available for both teams.
Does give them a little bit of counter dive option if one team starts to do it, and there it is secured for 100 Thieves, not just available, but going to be chosen. Emma Frost gives them a lot of, like we say, counter dive capability. One of the best frontliners, especially on that Wakanda Falls map, to actually, well, create some falls. See if you can kick some people off the edge if you're especially lucky, as otherwise there's not too many environmentals for characters like Angela, which is why we don't see her as much in particular on these maps.
A lot of tight corridors too, so if you're able to take the point and you want to try and push and fight up, Silent Seduction is just so good at that. If, 100 Thieves take the point first, FlyQuest try and go for an engagement, you're like, haha, Emma Frost ultimate, woo! And you can't really do too much in the end. But Hela's going to be the final ban that goes in from 100 Thieves against FlyQuest. And the Protect an Invisible Woman sort of insinuates that FlyQuest are going to go for like stuff, maybe like the Hela Namor. But if there's a chance to show some other ideas or strategies, show that you're not just locked into one kind of composition, it's now. But maybe that's what you want to tell other teams, like, oh yeah, we can only play this certain style, we really need our Jeff, we really need our Mantis. So when you actually go into a draft against them, they're like, actually, we can play all of this other cool stuff.
Honestly, looking at these drafts, I would have considered them to be perfect if they were swapped. The fact that 100 Thieves would have got themselves, for example, an Adam and a Winter Soldier, could have gone for some huge burst potential there, and FlyQuest could have got themselves the Hela Namor, as they have proved to be one of the best teams with it throughout this entire event. But the fact is, those drafts are swapped. It's going to be 100 Thieves bringing out that Hela Namor, and the Winter Soldier is going over to Energy.
I do like the draft for 100 Thieves. I think it's just like sort of picking very selective stuff. Not really characters that anchor a team up, for example, but just knowing their opponent. And that's one thing that you can say. I think from speaking to Shib last night about this matchup too, it was only that one game that they saw in playoffs that they matched up against each other in different groups, just never really interacted with each other once they had qualified for Atlanta. So this, again, it's similar in the sense that it's for seeding. I think 100 Thieves want to prove that there's only one top dog in North America, especially when the second seed is going to be missing from playoffs.
Very true. There's a lot of pressure on both of these teams while they are qualified. That seeding position, as we mentioned, is extremely important. Sieging from above, Energy already trying to build up towards that first Kraken impact. Terra, though, on the flank, causing a bit of grief for Sparker. Sparky going to be pressuring into that backline, seeing if they can set up for a little bit of pressure onto the strategist, and already finds Harvey, and 100 Thieves are a little bit slow on that reaction.
Definitely slow. Terra seeing if you can disengage, not lose out on any other people, and there's at least a bit more stall from Vinny. It's not as if time is going to progress in favor of FlyQuest with that stall. It was just buying a little bit more time for 100 Thieves to maybe reset, come out of spawn, and go for this fight again next. It is kind of like you mentioned, Tetra. I think stylistically it is like complete opposites, but it is a good chance to sort of get some reps on stuff, because FlyQuest have to be very keen to move away from triple strategist. 100 Thieves pretty much 50-50. Trying to go for some different ideas with a Hela and Star-Lord combination. And speaking of which, Terra, 2/3 of having his way to the Galactic Legend. Mostly just trying to get through this choke, see if they can catch people out. And Vez is very much in a spot that he could be caught out. It's an amazing hook that actually completely isolates him. But Terra just sort of a little bit more out in the open than you typically see from a Star-Lord.
Always on the move, always rolling, always getting that bonus health, but in this case it's going to be picked up as Kraken Impact comes on out. FlyQuest chasing them all the way back to spawn. They don't just want the control here, they want to make sure that they get as much percentage as possible by keeping 100 Thieves away from the point. They don't want to go for these retake fights, but they will have to back up eventually, because if you overextend, you will just be giving that point over.
Yeah, so far FlyQuest, I mean, the reason why this composition worked so well against Na'Vi earlier for FlyQuest was the damage and the eliminations that Energy was able to do when he could string picks like that with the hook over onto Terra and then turn it into a really nice ultimate to reset the clock a little bit more. 100 Thieves now, Terra wants to try and match up in his head-to-head. Meteor M mostly trying to mitigate some of this damage. Not really able to catch all that much, so can Terra get much off the back of it? He's able to get onto Vision, but the Life Cocoon means that he's going to come back into the fight, and Camp Revival's in the back pocket if more threat comes out of this 100 Thieves time whilst they go for this retake.
Cooper's keeping the team topped up. Astral Flock to Lena, just playing evasively, trying to get some shots, gets that Guardian barrier for the extra protection, tries to chase onto Energy, who get out with the Trooper's Fist, invisible boundary for the extra sustain, and once again Spark Chief is causing so much pressure, so much damage. Team up offered from the Winter Soldier, not even utilized it.
I think this has been a good event for Spark Chief, but there's only so much that he could do in the end. And the progression now on the point turns in favor of 100 Thieves for the first time, but it's 99% for FlyQuest. They still have 3 ultimates banked up, and they're struggling to sort of reset here, trying to do it as quickly as possible. It has allowed 100 Thieves that dedicated quite a lot into that fight to farm up just a little bit more. Terra just used the Galactic Legend, what, like less than a minute ago? Almost has it again.
Almost charged up right away here. FlyQuest, on the other hand, they've got Kraken Impact already and that Karmic Revival, which they've still been holding on to since the first time we talked about it here. Just being very cautious with this, but now they can move out together with Freedom Charge potentially leading the way for the opening of that first fight. They're going to wrap around that first entryway and try and go through the low ground with a much wider attack point with the Freedom Charge for the opening on that bonus health as they charge it out. And Spark Chief literally just charges straight through. Finally, Positive comes down, but they've got a lot of damage onto Harvey. Kraken Impact takes up both the backline. A disintegration of the sustain. Even the tainted voltage lands as FlyQuest flipped that beautifully. And 100 Thieves, they're going to have to just charge this Venom Fruit. They got Venom's going to be the first one to charge onto the point, but Kraken Impact still available, and that's going to be FlyQuest holding the first point.
They've got a Karmic Revival just sat in the pocket to go straight in for seconds. Yeah, it's not really been needed so far. But for 100 Thieves, there was only so much that they could do to realistically hold on to it. I like Spark Chief, like, as they were trying to get past that choke, just putting up the shield, because they know that 100 Thieves dedicate so many ultimates to take the point. Doesn't want to really let them farm up from some trash damage whilst they're in this kind of neutral engagement. And then just a good fight. It feels like once that I'd love to get for playoffs, realistically, is just like how many eliminations that we've seen Energy being able to get. He's 10-1, 9 final hits. How many of those do we think was off of the Kraken's impact?
Quite
6?
a few, but not as many as you might think, just considering how often they were able to just take the neutral. That Bionic Cook in particular, they were actually just KS'd by Cooper at the end of that. Otherwise, that would have been an extra one on there. But yeah, right now, this is just 100 Thieves with quite a few ultimates charged up. They may just have to take the aggressive first fight here and get early control and then try and hold it.
Now, FlyQuest, very close to having a Fate Both Worlds too. 100 Thieves, not going to be too upset with losing that first point in the end when you have 4 ultimates that you can just sit back on, maybe 5 potentially if Delaney could just throw out a little bit more damage to get that Goddess of Death online. But Vision playing from the high ground, playing subtly in a spot that no doubt 100 Thieves know that, like, Camp Revival wasn't used, he has it. He's target number 1.
Here we go, 100 Thieves. They're going to try and go for that early fight, but they've already lost 2 members. Helena is down. Terra is pulled in through a Galactic Legend. The Silent Seduction does not find anything. And 100 Thieves, they tried to play aggressive, but they are paying for it, losing 2 right off the bat. And then the Stragglers are just picked up one by one. 100 Thieves are annihilated on this point.
And really, off the back of nothing, right? It was 100 Thieves that were the ones that were sort of using the ultimates with the Galactic Legend, Silent Seduction. FlyQuest just sort of were able to win out the fight in the end by just bunkering down. They still have the Karmic Revival. I think Vision is just not really going to have it in use.
the best counter ultimate, the best defensive ultimate in the game, walking behind a wall. It counts as more than you think.
Yeah.
FlyQuest are able to push on in once again to try and contain 100 Thieves, but not too deep. You don't want to get caught out of position by overextending. It's all about making sure that you can retreat onto the point when needed, but slow your opponent's roll. Invisible Boundary, you're so far off the point for this.
The laner switching over towards the Winter Soldier does have the Kraken's Impact. Is going to pull it out alongside that Fate of Both Worlds and Feast of the Abyss, trying to combine to get something. Able to get vision. Live Cocoon though is going to bring him back into the fray. It feels like now this might be the time. That Q button he has cobwebs on it. And now there's still nothing really going in for 100 Thieves. His energy is now going to bring the Kraken's Impact out on his side. TTK, Silent Seduction, trying to pull some of these players out. Spark Cheek is very low, and now Vision, for the first time so far this map, now going to bring these players back into the fray. 100 Thieves not able to grab the point whilst all of this ruckus has been going on. It's ticked up to 60% for FlyQuest.
Silent Vortex coming on in for a little bit of extra stain. They're trying to chase back onto TTK to put the punishment on, and Spark Chief is just keeping the pressure on right now. FlyQuest once again keeping 100 Thieves in their spawn.
And now Freedom Charge used up, so FlyQuest having to use a lot, but it makes sure that 100 Thieves can't really bunker up and set up into position. I think Delana on the Winter Soldiers looked a little bit better with some of that lethality, but they've also been taking so much damage again. He's pretty low. I think that was one of the reasons that Invisible Boundary got forced out quite early up on the high ground fight. Melania gets picked off. Just as we see 100 Thieves get 50% on the board, it's going to be 99 for FlyQuest to hit, and I don't think there's going to be anybody else from 100 Thieves to actually contest this one.
There's no one close. Vinny might try and swing back in, but he's already taken out. Vision snipes him before he even touches. Ultimate's used a dance party in the boundary for FlyQuest for style, as they are able to take a very solid map number 1.
In style is the best way to put it. It's a statement for FlyQuest to sort of work here. Undefeated on domination so far this event, and they're the kind of games that you want. Yes, it's seeding. Yes, like both these teams are going to be in playoffs. It's fine. There's nothing too much to show. But it's the fact that this is a team that knocked you down to the losers bracket and then Envy finished the job that you're basically saying like that was a fluke. We're the top dogs of EMEA, especially now that there's no Envy. It is between these two and Dark Zero from the other group that went out in 4th.
Really does seem to be. The pressure is on. Let's have a look at the highlights for this. Energy finishing out with 12 final hits, like we said, just continuing to build it so much that 100 Thieves abandoned the Namor very quickly to move over to Star-Lord, and then they tried swapping again to bring out the Winter Soldier on Delena because Terra was moving over to the Hela to see if they could land those shots. But FlyQuest, none of those changes mattered. 100 Thieves just could not break them.
Yeah, it sort of felt like you've got the ban that came out against FlyQuest with the Hela and stuff, but if I'm looking at what FlyQuest were able to do in this map, and certainly in that series against Na'Vi, I think Bucky needs looking at a little bit more because Energy was able to just provide so much, not only with just the ultimates to get in the picks, but some really good hooks to stop 100 Thieves from getting a little bit too comfortable. It just felt like for what FlyQuest is playing currently, it's so well suited for them. Maybe that wasn't the case in Stage 2. Maybe that's why they floundered a little bit when it came to their own like individual performances there. But this meta, whether it's their read on it, whether it's just the characters and comfort, it seems to be singing pretty high so far in groups.
I do want to bring up that you mentioned that maybe you look at the Winter Soldier, but at that point, how many duelists do you really want to start banning out against these team of FlyQuest? They have the Hela that we saw banned out there so that you could avoid that Hela Namor composition. They just picked Winter Soldier, didn't matter. Are you really going to burn 2 duelist spots versus FlyQuest when there's heroes like Mantis, Jeff, Venom, Emma, all of these high priority compositions just because those duelists are so scary? At this point, FlyQuest are just looking terrifying to draft against. We'll have to see if 100 Thieves can adjust. They need a bit of time to get themselves set up for map number 2, so we're going to head to a quick break. When we come back, the continuation and quite possibly conclusion if FlyQuest can close it out. become the best of the best.
The fight is gonna happen right here, right now.
Hey, we're FlyQuest.
We're here in Atlanta.
And you're watching Marvel Rivals Grand Finals.
You heard them, FlyQuest are coming for my job, as we are here at the Marvel Rivals Ignite Grand Finals, and FlyQuest are looking very good. 1-0 up versus 100 Thieves.
And they've chosen to go to Yggdrasil's path, which is sort of expected. That's what they've done so far once this event, but they're winless on it so far. 0-2, losing against Na'Vi, which we just saw FlyQuest beat Na'Vi on this map earlier today, so it feels a little bit more of like 100 Thieves. They're still feeling confident that they really are good on this map. It's 5-4, I think, for them so far from stage 2 and beyond. But that there's something to work on there that they feel that they've seen in VOD reviews that they want to try here again. Maybe they just have to read on what FlyQuest are wanting to do so far, but I don't think FlyQuest are going to be too worried that this is going to be the map choice for 100 Thieves in this best of 3.
I mean, how FlyQuest are playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't that concerned about most map choices from most teams, because the fact is, a lot of the teams, and also us, and also you probably at home, are looking at FlyQuest as a team that could win this tournament right now. 100 Thieves, though, they have beaten them. They have come third at mid-season. They did win Americas. They have what it takes. They just need to work out a few of those teething problems. If they can, then they might be able to get through this series and potentially the rest of the tournament as well.
So who are the teams that have taken a map off of FlyQuest so far? It's OUG.
OG, Na'Vi, and I think that's it.
Yeah, Citadel was 0-2, weren't they? So at least 100 Thieves, you want to match what OUG's done by taking a map off of them at the very least. But the Mantis band, similar to the last map, but also what the teams have been doing so far, not only in Convergence, but just across the board, with both these teams now, where we see the triple strategist, where we see the 2-2-2, it pretty much is now, looking at stats, like 50-50 on whether FlyQuest go in that direction. And Mantis is a good piece to put in either of those two puzzles. So the Adder Warlock is going to be picked up first from 100 Thieves. You would imagine that they one-side it.
One side could definitely give them a little bit of extra damage bonus, as Adam is quite heavy in the damage output themselves. There is the Jeff coming in for FlyQuest, though, giving themselves their own little priority here. With Venom currently banned away from their opponents, if they want to one-side Jeff, they might be forcing 100 Thieves to ban out that Venom, as once again, symbolic shenanigans is very scary to deal with. And of course, this map has some pretty solid environmental spots, especially on points 1 and 2.
And it was the one time that we see both teams actually taking out the Venom.
Yep.
Really feeling that that's just pivotal with the team up with Jeff, but also just
Sort of
probably
fell down the list a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I also feel that, like, when it comes to just Vanguards in a vacuum, I think Venom's probably one of the higher up ones, I'd say, in that case of just like what they
pretty good.
Yeah, anti-heal, just what they can do as a character. You have really good mitigation, really good mobility, whether it's in dive, anti-dive, something a little bit more brawly. Combinations with any form of damage boost for Feast of the Abyss can be really nice. Invisible Woman is taken out, really sort of takes out some of the strength and the power that you'd see in the stuff like the Hell and Namor compositions, and a one-sided Emma in the hands of FlyQuest.
Could give them a lot of extra sustain on holding that first point. We already mentioned it earlier. Statistically, teams that do get the Emma on this Yggdrasil path do perform a little bit better. One-sided Adam will be secured by 100 Thieves so that they can bring themselves back into these fights when they're on the defensive side if they want to. So they've set themselves up quite nicely there. Rocket's also used very effectively, but I doubt we'll be seeing a rocket ban from these teams despite it jumping up in priority. And there's the counter Jeff pickup, the save from 100 Thieves, meaning that both teams now have their hands on a Jeff.
I mean, it was a little bit late, I think. We had maybe like one ban, but they wanted to try and get the one-sided Emma Frost more than the one-sided Jeff. So maybe it feels like it just gets rid of a protect 400 Thieves right at the end. It gives you that choice to actually take out the Loki right at the end, which is starting to be a little bit more thrown in. Certainly on this map, actually, it is something that we have seen a little bit before from the side of FlyQuest. So clearly they have some ideas on these kind of compositions, but like having the Jeff on either side, again, similar to Mantis, if it's in triple strat, if it's in 2-2-2, plug in and play at the moment, for sure.
The majority of Loki has shown up has usually been with the Mantis, like you say, but in this case, Loki could have been utilized in double Adam compositions. If you want to come back into a fight, why not do it twice? May I introduce you to our new product, Adam Warlock, twice. As we are heading into Yggdrasil Path, starting off with FlyQuest on defense. 100 Thieves, they're already hovering. One of the most aggressive compositions I've seen, but again, take this with a grain of salt. A lot of this may be utilized just to look through the window and see what they can spy that FlyQuest are playing. Zelos, by the way, is bringing out the Cloak and Dagger.
I mean, we have seen a little bit more of it, especially when Jeff's in play. It seems like, you know, Fate did a really good job of it yesterday, for example, going up against what Citadel Gaming were running. So he's going to be in play so far. 100 Thieves trying to go for like a bunker breaking composition with the Moon Knight. Terra's trying to farm up the ultimate as quickly as possible, and on these convoy maps it doesn't take long. Shout out to Canuta that did it in like 20 seconds on Midtown in stage 2 for AMEA. But here it's North America all the way. These teams wanted to get a bit of a rematch in from the group stages of stage 2. And there you go, there's the hand of Khonshu. Very quick, very early on. The Groot trying to escape. A bit of mitigation in from the Bulwark keeps him alive. And it's only for a second though, as the laner over on the Storm cleaning up house. The Beerback's going to bring back one of the Vanguards, but not the other. Spark Chief gets taken out.
They're just going to delay even longer though. They go for the Loki clone with the God of Mischief. Cooper copying onto Zelos so they can get an Eternal Bond as they were already charged up here. And the fact is, 100 Thieves won that fight and FlyQuest still sustained them. That card has moved just a few meters, less than 10 meters so far. Second Eternal Bond coming out for FlyQuest to buy even more time, forcing defensive ultimates outside the spawn of 100 Thieves just to try and survive long enough to find the opportunity to break this.
We've seen so many teams move away from going for triple Vanguard, triple Strategist, this like bunker composition that FlyQuest are running. And now it's starting to be cleaned up. Instantly you've got Vest that's moved over towards the Strange, ready to go for another fight, but it seems to be the way to go. Just try to force as many engagements, stall this objective for as long as possible, because a minute and a half has been bought. You have like 2, 3, maybe even 4 engagements left on this defense of FlyQuest here.
We've already tripled the distance. The 100 Thieves were able to get a little bit earlier, but here comes the Omega Hurricane to try and shut down the defense positions, trying to get onto that Loki with Jeff Nado. They're trying to push on through and see if they can shut down the defensive bodies off this point, but a lot of them were able to evade it. FlyQuest once again with great positioning, strangling Prison for the chase with the hand of Khonshu for a blow up. Delena makes it a double, triple, but Terra will fall, but it's a worthy sacrifice. 100 Thieves with Khonshu's blessing, but not his champion, will continue to move towards the gate.
You know, Zelos that was on the Cloak and Dagger before, I think was one of the reasons why that Sharknado managed to miss quite a lot, has switched over towards the Lunar Snow. There's no pole play available now for FlyQuest as they've just used it. So now Spark Chief wanted to try and dive in and hold it down. Heaven's Judgment is available. He's trying to pull the fight from 100 Thieves towards the back of the point, which means that these chokes are a little bit easy to get through. But he goes down in a split second from Delena, who is just raining down hell on this Storm.
Cooper coming in with the Ice Darts, running a little bit of extra sustain, has to drop the fate of both worlds so that their team could hold the point, but there's not that many bodies on the point. Beth will be respawning. They have to give up on the Eye of Agamotto to swap over to Captain America so they can try and contest it. But the Eye of Agamotto will be coming out from TTK, who does not need to swap as they isolate Spark Team. 100 Thieves are just picking them off one by one, it seems here. The retreat comes out from Energy because I think they realize that this might be doomed. With 60 seconds remaining, we're just seeing delays as much as possible. Vest buys a touch more time, as does Spark Chief, but they're just being picked off one by one. Even more delays from Vision. The timer is eaten, but the gates are open.
Yeah, 3 minutes for this second checkpoint. It could definitely be stalled out here. Terra sort of doing what we saw a little bit from him. I think it was up against Crazy Raccoon on Central Park, where it's just, okay, they're running this composition, instant Wolverine, instant decimation of any Vanguards that are set up there. But FlyQuest moving away from the 3-0-3 now to the Namor Hela, something that allows them to set up and use these sightlines, use the high grounds and crossfire as much as they possibly can. 100 Thieves are not really built to dive in onto these opponents with how they're set up on the ground with the Groot and the Jeff. But it's a case of, like, if they have to try and stall on the objective for FlyQuest, which is the name of the game for this, they might end up with more than they bargained for. There's a last stand that's very close for Terra that he's not going to switch off the character just yet. An invisible boundary is just going to kind of force FlyQuest to back off a little bit more, give Delena a bit of a window to leap in with the Galactic Legend, but there really isn't any pressure going in onto FlyQuest right now outside of forcing that fate of both worlds and then a Psionic Seduction to follow.
Strangling Prison came on out, but wasn't able to find a target. 400 Thieves, but instead of running out of resources here. Vision, Horde of Proteus takes down Melinda. Ayamogamoto will be dropped to try and take him down, to try and get the flip. Vinny gets energy, but they're being completely outnumbered. Last stand for Wolverine, pulling back with a little bit of healing. Is not able to sustain on through. TTK falls, and FlyQuest will sustain that 100 Thieves, finding the odd pick, but they just out-traded every single time. FlyQuest will hold.
It felt like 100 Thieves set themselves up nicely there, because you have got the Galactic Legend, forces out the Fate of both worlds, and then Eye of Agamotto from TTK connecting onto Free even ended up with an elimination. FlyQuest just having a couple of ultimates on hand to work with. Cooper's making a low-key work, one-sided as well, so it's not going to be available for 100 Thieves. Might be the way to go forwards, as the Goddess of Death is going to be used right in this corner. It's going to catch 100 Thieves as they try to pivot around and fight, find a new place to try and take this fight from. Terra gets picked off. And there's now just less than 90 seconds for 100 Thieves. This payload hasn't moved as far as it can have done. FlyQuest holding on with his defense and just bullied 100 Thieves off the objective itself.
They do have Portal. We're hearing screams over in our setup here as they're getting extremely hyped up right now into the back line. In comes Spark Chief, Soul Drainer to try and lock him down, but he's able to evade it, meaning that they can just keep harassing Tidal Dirge to try and punish the front line. The 100 Thieves just continuously getting slowed down, distracted, and harassed here. Uber goes down.
Yeah. There's no Cooper for the time being, Investors as well. And this is times where you have Fate of both worlds. You actually had a lot for FlyQuest that you were just sitting back on waiting for the engagement to happen, but it just goes in and goes down before you're really expecting it. 100 Thieves are trying to make this work without dedicating any more ultimates. You do lose a Delaner that was on the Adam Warlock, but the passive is going to bring you back into the fold. This is a really good fight for 100 Thieves, just as we're getting close to overtime, 20 seconds left. They have 5 ultimates, 6 almost, with Terra having that Goddess of Death. They didn't need to use anything then.
They are so very close. 100 Thieves try to creep towards that last gate. FlyQuest, they burned the Fate of both worlds on that first setup, and they're going to use Freedom Charge for this second. And look at it, just laser guided. They know how much Delena is important in this fight. If they can take them out, then there's no revives, but they just cannot keep the pressure on due to the fact that Terra was in the air. Eye of Agamotto from TTK for the first setup. Continued distraction. No pickups from either side, but at overtime is starting to tick down every time they step off of the point. Forced to push on up. TTK, one of a few controller players, has very few cooldowns left. Armor's Vision is trying to go onto the flank, see if they can get a quick blow, but the strategist, the Common Revival comes on out, brings back Vinny, allowing Freedom Charge, bonus health to allow this push to come on in with Hela from the sky, pushing extra damage. She gets Soul Drained herself, but is able to retreat into that area. Oh, the Proteus takes out the front line, and Ryan, it's looking rough for Thieves.
It's Jeff is going to be used. It's the last ultimate in the hands for 100 Thieves, and it's just used to keep the sustain going. Nobody else has gone down in the time being. It's able to pick up to the Hela, but everybody else from 100 Thieves that was there just got pushed back. They were not able to touch, and FlyQuest draw the line in the sand of Yggdrasil that they are now seeking to cross on their attacking side.
Rough situation. Not a terrible push for 100 Thieves. Way over halfway through this map, meaning that it is doable, but FlyQuest, they've already shown just how strong they are, especially in these aggressive setups here. And you can see a couple hovers here onto some interesting stuff. I doubt we'll see the main strategist Cooper onto the Daredevil, but it will at least give them a little bit of opportunity to once again look through the window. 100 Thieves, though, they do have Adam protected. FlyQuest did not. So if they want to go for a heavy defense, then they could go for Adam or Rocket or both. It's risky because you lose a lot of healing output here because you're very reliant on the AoE healing of Rocket to really make up the numbers there.
I'm being really impressed with FlyQuest this event. I think some teams you just see like a style that seems to suit them, but the fact that FlyQuest play both the triple strategist and 2-2-2 so well means I think they're maybe favorites for this event, especially with how well they played up against Na'Vi earlier.
I would very much be with you. FlyQuest teasing us by looking through the window. That is what they're using this for, so that they can set up. We will.
Oh, which character do you mean? I wonder.
Possibly be seeing Spider-Man and Daredevil in the triple duelist setup for the rollout. But I think we will be seeing this Moon Knight to burst on through, especially with this Groot already set up. And we go into a standard 2-2-2 for FlyQuest as 100 Thieves trying to set themselves up for the defense with Vinny setting up the walls, but he's trying to trade out with Spark Chief. Yeah,
it's the Hela instead of a Storm. No, that's the main difference for FlyQuest. Spark Chief trying to farm up the Strangler Prison, seeing if he can match the time that Energy might be able to do on the Fist of Khonshu. Vision, yeah, forcing down the BR back early is nice. It means that Vinny is going to be back into the fold fairly soon. But there's not really too much else. Terra will have the portal to work with, but he's right in the middle of the fight and almost has an Eye of Agamotto before anybody else has got their ults.
Comes the Fist of Khonshu, of course, for the zoning potential. That's allowing FlyQuest to create an opening to push on up. Delena is at 82% for that Karmic Revival, but that won't be enough. They will likely portal back for this next defense, which means Delena may be able to build up a Karmic Revival, but positioning is going to be key. We saw a little bit of it earlier where teams are sending their Adam Warlocks off into corners to hide, to wait for those revives, and there's a chance they may need to do that because Delena will not have Cocoon.
Straight back into the fight. And you already lose Delena, you've got the Life Cocoon now, and almost close to a Karmic Revival. All sorts of stuff being used from 100 Thieves to just kind of keep this going, but there's still picks happening in favor of FlyQuest. You've got the Fate of Both Worlds being copied over from Cooper, and Zelos has his still in hand, so you're able to sort of string these two together potentially. If it wasn't for 100 Thieves really starting to put the pressure in these objectives, starting to clamber on through, there's a Strangler Prison in hand for Vinny. You don't need it. TTK has cleaned up house.
That was so important for 100 Thieves. Yes, being able to hold the point is important, but burning Karmic Revival and the portal for that hold is quite rough to deal with. However, if you're able to pick off quite a few members of your opponents and build up towards more ultimates, then it starts to become more worth it. They burned so much time to force FlyQuest to regroup and reset that it might have become worth it. Groot is able to retreat with the extra healing after being caught out by the wall. The side seduction comes on out. They use the high ground. Groot wall to escape there after nearly getting caught out. Hand of Khonshu for the push-up. TTK! Meteor Ram into the backline. Takes out Vision and Cooper. And the Eye of Agamotto from Terra to keep this momentum going. FlyQuest, Zelos was the only thing keeping them up in that fight. But the Fate of Both Worlds is about to expire while Harvey still has a visible boundary. Terra might need it as he drops low, but they don't even use it. They utilize Millennia to keep them topped up with that repair mode. And the Thieves repel FlyQuest again.
100 Thieves just doing it, sort of a bank, a couple of ultimates down. Vision's going to switch over towards the Bucky to see if they can maybe pull some people out of position there. That wall from Groot was so good to just be able to dodge it, and TTK has had so many great bulwarks to sort of block some of that damage, but Meteor M taking out 2 in that instance. FlyQuest might be full held here on first.
Being zoned away at least a little bit. Thieves, they have potentially 1 to 2 more holds here. Terra will likely not have falls, but they do have Karmic Revival and BRB straggling prison. And of Khonshu though, goodbye Thieves! Immediately Karmic Revival is popped just to stay, but it's in the doorway with Kraken Impact. It's a smorgasbord! FlyQuest crushing through as Thieves are being deleted. Cosmic Yard Amplifier turns it round. Thieves turn it. They get revived. Sustain the Kraken Impact, and FlyQuest are taken off the board!
That was looking like it was going to be fish in a barrel for FlyQuest. It couldn't have been any better set up. You have Strangling Prison, you have got the Hand of Khonshu, and Vision's just slamming on down with the Kraken's Impact. But 100 Thieves, a Karmic Revival worked perfectly for Delena, but also the Amplifier to get some damage out. It was just
so hard.
It was so tough now for FlyQuest to find an opening here. Energy switched over towards the Wolverine to see if he can get his hands onto Vinny, who has his own Strangler Prison and a Meteor M that could be the end of this map.
We're in the overtime on this first point. Wolverine comes in with the Feral Leaf, not able to find the first pickup, at least for the moment. Meteor M from TTK. Vinny's looking for anyone out in the open. Regeneration Domain will sustain. There's the Soul Bond for a little bit of extra sustain as well. Soul Bond is going to expire, but the Straggling Prison will tether them together anyway. Delena falls, but has Cocoon. Invisible Boundary. Terror is down though. Numbers in favor of FlyQuest, but that Cocoon might be coming back off cooldown. Might be up already, meaning if Terror comes back in time, they might be able to reinforce this as the rest of 100 Thieves are holding the point. Kraken Impact. Vision gets 2, gets 3.
Delena's so close.
They're going for it. Terra's going for the portal to try and reach it, but I don't know if he has the time, Ryan. He's going to cancel the portal, and FlyQuest break the gate.
Delena just got his Karmic Revival online, and Vision catches him just in that second I think he was going to use it. The Kraken's Impact just sends him all the way back to spawn, and 100 Thieves, it looked like they might be able to hold on with just how those fights were going. But FlyQuest managed to get themselves across the line. Now they've got 2 minutes, which isn't a lot of time to get here on second, but look how far they've pushed up. They know they need to create as much space as possible. 3 players stunned, 3 players CC'd, one of them's delaying her. He's got the life cocoon that's going to be used up at this moment. They're really still trying to regroup as they lost the rocket at the same time. That's so good for FlyQuest.
Thieves able to copy FlyQuest strategy though, while the fight is one far up. Vinny delays the cart, which gives a little bit of an opportunity for Thieves to respawn and get back onto the point, but they need to make sure that Vinny stays up. He's able to escape from vision as they move back in. The objective, the points, the terrain is about to respawn. Trap onto TTK. The bulldog is bursting immediately. Soulbots keeps them sustained though as they push on in. We're down to 1 minute and 28 seconds. Clone Cooper giving themselves another fade of both ones as the Cosmic Yard Amplifier comes on out for the damage boost. 100 Thieves are trying to make something happen off of this, with Cooper keeping the team topped up. Psionic Seduction to try and trap them on the ramp because the finish line is right there. Meteor M looking for the strategist. Is going to hit Wolverine, who picks him up anyway. Takes him off the point, and TTK is picked up alone.
There's only one ball of metal that's scary when it flies across the sky, and it's the adamantium of energy. The leaping across now as Terra's going to try and see if he can catch them off. The Comet Revival, 100 Thieves digging in their heels with just less than a minute to go. They're trying to deal with that pesky player of Spark Chief that's now just trying to pull back the sight line, but there's too much focus that goes in onto him. It's now 5 players for FlyQuest, 4 actually free, as they've all been picked off from this damage that's been thrown out from 100 Thieves. It means that this reset is going to be a bit more precarious in the time for FlyQuest.
They're pushing them to the gate to try and zone them, but they don't have everyone here. They can't afford to get backdoored, so they have to defend nearer the point with just 23 seconds left. FlyQuest are down to 1 point. They brought out the Hella, they brought out the Namor. They're going for resets. If they win this fight with just a couple pickups, they can snowball it. But with Terra so close to a Kraken impact, the same could be said on the other side, especially with Cooper not having that God of Mischief could become resets for the Kraken impact.
So here now, 100 Thieves trying to bring us to a map 3 on this defense as overtime has been hit. It is just about 7 meters to work with for FlyQuest, and they've switched over towards this composition. Yeah, it's a great pickup in this area, but Energy's the one that gets taken down. The Kraken's impact is now going to come into full fruition, and everything that could be thrown out for 100 Thieves, 4 ultimates in hand, 2 have already been used.
No resets for Terra. The Freedom Charge is giving the rest of 100 Thieves a little bit of a setup. Here comes Bess with the Psionic Seduction to try and set him up. Cosmic Yard Amplifier for the bonus health. Vision has Horde and Proteus. Copy for a bait of both worlds to allow one more sustain. The Vision falls! The Horde comes out, finds nothing. Millennia's ultimate expires, but they're still fighting on this. TTK falls, no Karmic. The Karmic Revival comes on out, bringing them back into this fight. They need to reach TTK, who found themselves isolated, but Harvey will return with Visible Boundary. TTK is back. Portal for FlyQuest. I can say this one more time. Xenos has that Fate of Both Worlds, which has to be utilized with that Invisible Boundary expiring soon. Thieves are out of sustain. They're out of bodies. And the Eye of Bakamoto to close it out for 100 Thieves. They do not have the bodies. They do not have the health. And FlyQuest take the second map and the series.
It couldn't have been any closer in the end when you've got 100 Thieves sticking to having that one-sided Adam. The amount of Comet Revivals that we saw, just a sheer attrition for 100 Thieves. The top seed of Americas losing to third of FlyQuest, resetting a balance it seems, as FlyQuest have the perfect group and come out as the top seed from Group B.
What a performance from FlyQuest, but 100 Thieves, they showed us that they are not to be overlooked yet, taking them to the limit every single time. One more